Have you ever noticed how some people, they just seem to be, I don't know, factories of finished projects,
Hmm.
and then others, and maybe this is you, are more like graveyards of half-started ideas?
That's a painful thing to admit, but I think we all have that.
We all have it. That one book we started writing 3 years ago, or, the business plan that's just sitting in a folder on the
Yeah.
desktop, or that commitment to get in shape that lasted, what, exactly 4 days.
Mhm.
And we usually blame it on time. We say, I'm just too busy, or we blame it on discipline. Like, I just don't have the grit.
Right, if only I had more willpower.
Exactly. But what if the problem isn't grit at all? What if the problem is that you're trying to build a fire with a flamethrower, but you have no wood? Or, the other way around. You've got a huge pile of wood, but no spark.
That's a very vivid image, and I think it captures that frustration perfectly. We're so often running on one cylinder when the engine, it requires two.
It requires two. And today, we are going to talk about that engine. We are wrapping up our series on the Kybalion, which has been, well, it's been quite a journey.
It really has.
We've covered 6 principles so far, everything from the mental nature of the universe to the laws of vibration and polarity. But today, we arrive at the 7th principle. And I have to be honest, when I first saw the title of this chapter, I flinched.
I think most people do. It's the one that usually makes modern readers pause.
It makes us pause because it feels incredibly loaded. In our current cultural moment, gender is a massive, complex, and often really heated topic. So before we go any further and before you decide this isn't for you, we need to be extremely clear.
Yes.
If this episode helps you, please hit like and subscribe for the next one. But tell me, are we about to spend an hour talking about biological sex or gender identity politics?
We are absolutely not, and I am so glad you brought that up right at the top, because it's the single biggest barrier to understanding this text. The Kybalion was published in, I think, 1908. The authors were using the word gender in its original etymological sense. It comes from the Latin root generare.
Generare.
Yes, which means to beget, to produce, to generate, or to create.
Ah, okay.
It's the root word of generation, generator, genesis, even genius. So when the Hermeticists talk about the principle of gender, what they're really talking about is the principle of creation.
So the mechanics of how things get made.
Exactly. They're talking about the mechanics of how things, universes, atoms, thoughts, even business plans, actually come into being.
So if I can just mentally find and replace the word gender with, say, generation or creation, I'm going to be much closer to the mark.
Much, much closer. In fact, you could think of it as the principle of generative polarity.
Generative polarity. I like that.
The core idea is that nothing in the universe, absolutely nothing, comes into existence without the interplay of two forces. You need an initiator and you need a receiver.
Yeah.
You need a projector and you need a container for that projection.
An active force and a receptive force.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense on a philosophical level. But the text does use the terms masculine and feminine, and I think for a lot of us that immediately conjures up all these stereotypes. Men are active and strong, women are passive and weak. Is that what this is saying?
No, definitely not. And the text is actually quite fierce about this point. It explicitly states that biological sex is just one tiny physical manifestation of this universal law.
Just one of many.
Just one of many. But the law itself is universal. It applies to electricity, to magnetism, to gravity, to chemistry. When the text uses masculine and feminine, it's using them as technical terms for energy dynamics, almost like positive and negative in a battery.
Okay, so let's define those technical terms then. What is the masculine principle in this context?
The masculine principle is the active force. It's the aspect of energy that projects, that initiates, that urges and wills things into motion. It's the spark.
The spark.
In the realm of the mind, it's the will. It's the part of you that says, I am going to do this.
Okay. And the feminine principle?
The feminine principle is the receptive force. But, and this is really critical, receptive does not mean passive in the sense of just sitting there doing nothing.
Right.
It's the aspect of energy that receives that initial impulse, nurtures it, organizes it, and gives it form. It's the imagination, it's the subconscious, it's the whole field of possibilities.
I really like that idea of distinguishing receptive from passive, because in our culture, we tend to really value the active, don't we?
Oh, absolutely.
We like the doers, we like the people who are constantly moving, breaking things, pushing forward. And we tend to look at that receptive phase, the listening, the thinking, the imagining. We see it as wasting time.
Which is exactly why we burn out. I mean, if you look at the physics of it, you cannot have an electrical current without both poles. A battery with only a positive terminal Well, it's just a lump of metal. It creates nothing.
It does nothing.
The Hermetic teaching says that every single person, regardless of their biology, possesses both of these principles within their own mind. You have an I, which is the will, the masculine, and a me, the imagination, the feminine.
I and me. That's a distinction the text makes that I found really, really interesting. Can we unpack that a little?
Sure. So the me is your mental container. It holds your memories, your feelings, your self-image, your imagination. It's the part of your mind that you can actually examine.
Okay.
You can look at your me and say, I'm feeling sad today, or I have an idea for a song. The me is the soil.
It's the soil and the I.
The I is the observer and the actor.
Yeah.
It's the part of you that exerts the will upon the me. So creation happens when the I projects a seed of intention into the soil of the me.
So if I'm a writer, the me is the part of my brain that's just daydreaming, coming up with characters, feeling the emotions of the scene.
Yes,
And the I is the part that says, okay, sit down in the chair and type.
precisely.
Yeah.
And right there is where the problem of those unfinished projects usually lies. Some people are all me and no I. They have these incredible imaginations, vivid dreams, wonderful sensitivity. They're constantly receiving ideas, but they have a weak I.
So they never act.
They never project the will to crystallize those ideas into reality. They're the dreamers who never ship.
And the reverse of that, the I without the me.
That's the whole hustle culture tract, isn't it? That is someone who is all will. They're grinding, pushing, forcing, acting.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not taking the time to receive, to listen, to imagine, to strategize. They were just projecting energy into a void. It's like trying to build a building with no blueprint.
And the result is what? Chaos?
Usually chaos, burnout, or a product that nobody wants because it has no soul.
It's the difference between being busy and being effective.
Exactly. The fully integrated human being, what the Hermeticists would call a master, is someone who has balanced these two. They know how to use the feminine principle to receive the vision.
And the masculine principle to execute the action. I want to circle back to the science for a moment, because one of the most surprising parts of this text, which again was written in 1908, is how much time it spends talking about atoms and electrons.
Right.
I felt like I was reading a physics textbook from the turn of the last century.
It's a fascinating historical snapshot. You have to remember the context. In the early 1900s, the quantum revolution was just beginning.
Okay.
Scientists like J.J. Thomson were discovering that the atom wasn't some solid little billiard ball, but a complex system of energy. And the Hermeticists looked at this and said, aha, the law of gender is right there in the atom.
They use these terms corpuscles and ions, which just sounds very steampunk to me.
It does. A corpuscle was just an early term for what we now call an electron. The text describes the atom as having a positive center, what we'd call the nucleus or protons, and negative corpuscles, the electrons whirling around it.
And this is where they make a point that completely flips the script on the whole idea of weakness. Because in electricity, we call the receptive pole negative. And in our language, negative means bad or missing or less than.
Right. We think positive is the hero and negative is the villain.
Yeah.
But the text points out that in the atomic model, it's the negative corpuscles, the electrons, that are the workers.
They're the ones doing everything.
They're the ones spinning, moving, bonding with other atoms, creating chemistry, building molecules. The positive center just sits there and exerts influence. It provides the anchor, the will, if you like.
Yeah.
But the negative side does the actual work of generation.
That is such a cool reframe. The feminine or receptive energy isn't just, sitting on a fainting couch waiting to be rescued.
Not at all.
It's the swarm of activity that actually builds the universe. It creates the form.
It creates the foam. Think of it like a construction site. The architect provides the blueprints and the orders. That is the active, the masculine principle. But the construction crew, the cranes, the cement mixers, the ones actually building the structure, that's the receptive, the feminine principle. It receives the plan and gives it a body.
So if you respect the architect but fire the crew, you have nothing.
Nothing. And if you have a crew but no architect, you just have a pile of bricks.
So the negative pole is actually the form-building pole.
Oh.
That connects right back to the mind then. If I want to build a new habit, I can't just will it into existence. I can't just scream, I will lose weight at the mirror.
No, that's just the positive pole.
I need the negative pole. I need to build the structure, the plan, the environment.
You need to nurture the idea. This is why the text uses the word generation. It implies a gestation period. You plant the seed, which is the will, into the soil, which is the imagination. You don't scream at the soil to hurry up.
No.
You nurture it. You let the receptive mind do its work of connecting dots, finding solutions, preparing the nervous system.
This feels like it explains a lot about why willpower alone fails so often. We treat willpower like this blunt instrument. We try to force change without engaging the imagination.
Willpower is a spark.
Yeah.
It is not the fuel. The
Yeah.
imagination is the fuel. If you can get your feelings, your desires, your visualization aligned with your I, then you don't need to force it. You're pulled toward the goal. And that is the fully integrated state.
I want to pivot to something the text calls mental transmutation. It sort of hints that this principle isn't just internal, it's also how we influence other people. How does gender apply to, say, leadership or persuasion?
Yeah, this is a bit of the Jedi mind trick section of the Kybalion. But it's actually just psychology.
Okay.
The text suggests that communication itself is a gendered act.
Yeah.
The speaker, the influencer, is acting in the masculine role. They are projecting an idea, a vibration, a thought form.
And the listener?
The listener, the audience, is in the feminine role. They are receiving that impression into their mind.
So every conversation is a microscopic act of fertilization.
In a way, yes. If I'm a leader trying to get my team excited about a new mission, I'm projecting a seed of enthusiasm and vision. If their minds are receptive, if they're open, listening, and trusting, that seed lands in their imagination. It takes root, and then they begin to generate the action.
But this also implies a danger, doesn't it? Because if we're always in a receptive mode, we're just taking in everyone else's seeds.
That is the danger of the modern world. We are constantly being bombarded by advertising, by the news, by social media algorithms. They are all projecting strong, active thought forms at us. Be afraid of this, buy this, hate this person.
Right.
If you're passive, if you don't have your own I standing guard at the gate, your me becomes a dumping ground for other people's weeds.
That is a terrifying image, but it feels so accurate. How many times have you found yourself angry about something just because you scrolled past the headline without even knowing if it was true? You accepted the seed?
Exactly. So part of mastering this principle is learning when to be receptive and when to be active. You need to be able to close the door and say, no, I do not accept that suggestion. I will generate my own thoughts.
That's mental sovereignty.
That's it.
Okay, this brings us to the big picture. We have spent weeks on these 7 principles: mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, causation, and now gender. It's a lot of theory. But the Kybalion isn't just a book of theory, is it? It claims to be a practical system.
It calls itself a key to the doors of the temple. But I prefer to think of it as a field command manual for the mind.
A field command manual. I like that.
These aren't 7 separate rules. They're a single stacked technology. When you're in the trenches of life, when you're overwhelmed or failing or confused, you can use these principles as a checklist to troubleshoot your reality.
I love checklists. And I think this is the most valuable thing we can do for everyone listening today. I want to walk through what we're calling the capstone method. Let's stack all 7 principles to solve a single real-world problem. Okay, let's pick a hard scenario. Not I want to be happier, let's say.
Yeah.
Let's say I launched a small business 3 months ago, and it is failing. I'm bleeding cash. My partner is furious. I'm panicking. I feel like a total failure.
Okay.
I am awake at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling. How do I use the Hermetic principles to save myself and, the ship?
That is a high-stakes scenario, and it's a perfect test case. Most people in that situation would just try to work harder. They'd panic and start flailing around.
Right.
But the hermeticist stops and runs the algorithm.
So where do I start? Do I start with the cash flow?
No, that's the tail wagging the dog.
Yeah.
You always start at the top. Principle 1, mentalism. The all is mind.
Okay.
You have to stop and acknowledge that the panic you're feeling is a mental event. The situation is just data. The bank account has a number in it. That's a fact. The story, I'm a disaster and this is over, that's a mental creation.
So my first move is just to detach.
You detach. You say, I am the thinker of this thought. I am not the thought itself. You choose the frame.
Okay. I'm taking a breath. I'm separating the facts from the fear. What's next?
Principle 2, correspondence. As within, so without.
The diagnostic tool.
Exactly. You look at the external chaos, the messy books, the angry partner, the confusing marketing, and you ask the hard question, where does this match the chaos inside of me?
Oh.
If your business is disorganized, it's almost certainly because your mind has been disorganized. If your partner is screaming, it might be reflecting your own internal screaming.
That is a tough pill to swallow. It puts the responsibility squarely on me. I can't blame the economy.
Radical responsibility is the only way to get your power back. If the outer world is a mirror, you can't fix the reflection by scrubbing the glass. You have to change the face.
You have to organize your own mind to organize the business.
Yes.
Okay, I've owned it, but I still feel terrible. I'm just vibrating with fear.
Which brings us to principle 3. Vibration. You know that like attracts like. If you try to solve this problem while vibrating at the frequency of panic and scarcity, you will only create more of it.
You literally can't see the solution from that level.
You can't. You have to shift your state.
But I can't just flip a switch, right? I can't just decide to be Zen when I'm broke.
Correct. That's why you need principle 4, polarity. The law of polarity says you can't jump from -100 to +100, but you can slide the dial.
Yeah.
You don't try to go from terror to joy.
Mhm.
You try to go from terror to determination, or even just from terror to neutrality.
You just ask, what's the next best feeling I can access?
That's the question. Can I feel focused?
Yes.
Can I feel willing? Yes.
Yeah.
You just ratchet yourself up degree by degree until you're stable.
Okay. I'm not happy, but I am stable. I'm determined.
Now you apply principle 5, rhythm. You look at the timeline.
Mhm.
You recognize that businesses, like tides, have rhythms. This might be the winter of your startup. It might be the low tide. And instead of fighting the tide and drowning, you say, okay, this is a contraction phase. What is the strategy for winter? You don't plant seeds in winter. You repair your tools. You use the low energy to consolidate and plan.
So you stop panicking that it's winter because you know spring follows if you survive.
That's it. It takes the existential dread out of it. It's just a season.
Okay, now I'm ready to act.
Now you're ready for principle 6, causation. You stop being an effect of the market. You become a cause.
Mhm.
You identify the specific inputs that are causing the crash. Maybe it's unnecessary spending. Maybe it's a lack of sales calls. You choose one specific cause to insert into the system.
Like, I will make 10 calls a day, or I will cut this subscription.
Right. You don't worry about the whole outcome. You just manage the input.
And finally, that brings us to today's principle.
Principle 7, gender, the created act. You've done all the work. You've framed it, diagnosed it, tuned your state, accepted the timing, and identified the lever. Now, you complete the circuit. You combine your receptive plan with your active will. You don't just dream about the solution. You don't just stress about it. You execute the specific task you identified.
You marry the me, the plan with the I, the action.
And that generates the result.
Wow. When you lay it out like that, it really is a complete operating system. It moves you from victim of circumstance to operator of reality.
That is the goal.
Yeah.
Sovereignty. It doesn't mean you won't have problems. It just means you have a protocol for solving them so they don't destroy you.
I think it would be helpful to look at a few other quick examples of how this specific receive then act cycle, the gender principle, works in daily life, because we often get the order wrong. Let's talk about work, specifically creative work.
A classic one. Think about a coder or a writer or a designer. The biggest mistake they make is trying to be active too soon. They sit down and just try to force the code or the words. The proper creative cycle requires phase 1, receptivity. You have to read the brief. You have to clarify the why. You have to sit for a moment and visualize the architecture of the code. You have to let the me gather the materials.
And only then do you move to phase 2.
Only then do you move to phase 2. Initiative, you set the timer, you turn off the Wi-Fi, you exert the will. If you skip phase 1, you write buggy code.
And if you skip phase 2, you just daydream about an app you never build. I feel attacked. I am definitely guilty of trying to write without thinking and then wondering why I'm stuck.
We all are.
What about relationships, especially difficult ones?
Oh, relationships are entirely about the flow between receptive and active. Let's say you're in an argument. Most of us stay in active mode.
Oh, yeah. You're reloading your next point while the other person is still talking.
Exactly. You're just projecting. The gender principle says you must switch to receptive. You must listen. And I mean, really listen. Allow their words and their feelings to imprint on your me, receive their perspective.
And
then and only then do you switch to active to initiate the repair. You set a boundary, or you offer an apology. But the action has to be informed by the reception.
listen to understand, not to reply. That's the definition of the receptive principle, isn't it?
That's it, right there.
Okay, one more. Habits. Everyone struggles with habits.
This is where causation and gender meet. The receptive phase is awareness. You have to just watch yourself. Why do I eat sugar at 4 p.m.? Oh, I'm bored. Oh, I'm lonely. You just receive the data about your own loops.
And the active phase.
The active phase is the microaction. You don't try to change your whole life. You exert your will on one tiny point. At 4 p.m., I will drink a glass of water. You initiate a new cause.
Most people fail because they're unaware, so no receptivity, or they rely on motivation instead of a specific action, no initiative.
Exactly.
It seems like the secret is really about respecting the cycle. Inhale, exhale, listen, speak, plan, build.
That's the rhythm of the universe. If you try to only exhale, you will suffocate. If you try to only act, you will deplete yourself.
I want to take this from theory to practice right now. I want to lead our listeners through a guided mental exercise. We can call it the creative cycle practice.
That's a great idea. Let's install the software.
Okay, so if you're listening, you can do this with your eyes open or closed. Just be safe if you're driving. I want you to bring to mind one goal or one problem that is stuck right now. Just one. Don't overthink it.
Got it. Okay. Step 1 is the receptive step. Stop trying to solve it for a second. I just want you to clarify exactly what you want. What does the finished result look like? Why do you want it? Let the image of the success land in your mind. Be the soil. Receive the vision. Feel the relief of it being done.
And step 2 is the initiating step. Now, I want you to choose one single proof action to take today. Not the whole project, just one small thing that proves you have the will. Maybe it's sending one text. Maybe it's just opening the document. Define it right now.
Now, step 3 is the tuning step. Check your vibration. Are you tense? Are your shoulders up by your ears? Take a breath. Drop the shoulders. Find a calm, steady state. You don't need to be excited. You just need to be steady.
Okay. Step 4 is the polarity step. If you feel resistance, if a little voice says, I don't want to, don't fight it. Just slide the dial. Choose willingness. Just say to yourself, I am willing to do this one small thing.
Step 5 is the rhythm step. Acknowledge that today might be a low-energy day, and that's okay. What's your baseline? What is the absolute minimum you can do? Just commit to that.
All right, step 6 is the causation step. Engineer your success. Remove one friction. Put your phone in the other room. Add one support. Put on your headphones. Create the cause.
And finally, step 7 is the close. Make a calm commitment to yourself. I have received the idea. Now I will initiate the action. Complete the cycle.
It is amazing how much calmer that feels than just staring at a to-do list. It puts the human back in the human doing. Before we wrap up this series, I want to make sure we address a few lingering misunderstandings. We've touched on them, but let's be explicit so no one walks away confused.
Good idea. Let's do a quick myth-busting round.
Okay, myth number 1. Gender in the Kybalion refers to biological sex.
Correction. It refers to generation. It applies to atoms, plants, stars, and psychology. It's about the mechanism of creation, not the biology of bodies.
Myth number 2. Men are only masculine and women are only feminine.
Correction. Every single human being possesses both principles. A man without the feminine principle, imagination, receptivity, he can't create. He can only destroy or repeat. A woman without the masculine principle, will, initiative, she can't manifest. She can only dream.
You need the whole engine to drive the car.
You do.
Myth number 3. Receptive means weak.
Correction. Receptivity is active holding. Think of the cables on a suspension bridge. They are receiving the weight of all the cars. Are they weak? No, they're under immense tension. Receptivity is the strength that holds the structure together. It's the foundation.
Myth number 4. I need to be in active mode all the time to be successful.
Correction. That is a violation of the principle of rhythm. Constant output without input leads to depletion and collapse. You must inhale to exhale. The pause is part of the music.
And finally, myth number 5. This is all just magic or woo-woo.
Correction. It's psychology and physics. It's the observation of cause and effect, whether you call it the law of gender or project management or design thinking. The mechanics are the same. You need a vision and a will. You need a blueprint and a builder. There is nothing mystical about getting things done.
Field command, not magic. I like that. So let's just recap the journey we've been on. The principle of gender teaches us that all creation requires 2 forces. The masculine, which is will and projecting, and the feminine, which is receptive and creative. We need to balance these energies to avoid burnout on one side or inertia on the other. And when we combine this with the other 6 principles, we have what you called a sovereign architecture for the mind.
And that is really the point of the Kybalion. It isn't about controlling the external world. You can't control the traffic, the weather, or the economy. Mastery is about controlling your response to the world. It's about building an internal structure that is so stable, so integrated, that you can navigate any storm and still create something beautiful.
This has been such an incredible journey. I feel like I have a whole new set of tools. Thank you for walking us through all this.
It has been a pleasure. These principles have been around for thousands of years for a reason.
Mhm.
They work, keep building, keep balancing.
And thank you to everyone listening. We really hope this series has given you something solid to stand on. Thanks for being here. If you want the full series, check the playlist and please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.
We have got a new series coming up next that explores a completely different text on strategy and wisdom. I think you're going to like it.
See you then.